Hello everyone, welcome to this session on Selenium interview questions. Today in this session, we will be talking about the most asked questions when you think about Selenium in your next interview. But before we move on guys, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the IntelliPath channel and also click on that bell icon to never miss out on any updates from us. So now let's go ahead and start off with the agenda. So first guys, we're going to understand what are locators and then move on to discuss about what is XPath. So we're going to be taking up questions related to locators and XPath, and once we're done with that, we'll move on and talk about data-driven frameworks. Once we're done with that, we'll move on and talk about Selenium web frameworks and then talk about the difference between Selenium and QTP. Finally, we'll be taking up questions about TestNG listeners and then Selenium Grid. So guys, this is the agenda for this session. I hope it's clear to you. Now let's move on and start off with the first topic, which is what are locators and some interview questions about them.
So coming to the first question on the top Selenium interview questions set, it is what is automation testing? There is a very good chance all of your interviews, if not most of your interviews, will definitely start with this question, guys. So automation testing is a very simple process of actually automating a manual test process, right? Hence the name automation. So whenever we do AUT, right, application under testing, or let's say even system under testing, what we call as SUT, to automate this process of taking away the manual the manual aspect of it, or the manual labor that's involved in achieving test results, right? So that's all about what automation testing is. There's a lot of tools today, especially in the world of testing and its automation, where you can do a lot of things in an exponentially rapid manner when you compare it to manual testing. And since you're already here at this interview question set, there's a good chance you might know a little bit about automation testing, right? So on that note, I'm sure you're aware of the huge dent in the world that automation testing is putting out to be. Now, moving on to the second question, it states, is Selenium 2.0 different from 3.0? If so, how? Well, Selenium 2.0 and 3.0 has a very subtle difference in a way where Selenium RC and Selenium WebDriver, right, since it was combined into a single tool, that eventually became to be known as Selenium 3.0. Selenium RC itself was called as Selenium 2.0 without having the WebDriver as a single integrated tool into it. And upon integration, it just became known. And upon integration, it came to be known as Selenium 3.0. So make sure to mention this in case you ask this question. Now, moving on to the third question, it states mention some of the popular tools that are used for automation testing. Well, so if you're at this point in time, I'm sure you guys have put in a decent amount of work into understanding what automation testing is. But when it comes to answering this particular question, right, so make sure to talk a little bit about the tools that are available, and in case if you have had any hands-on experience with these tools, right, so please make sure to talk about that as well, because this at the end of the day will add a lot of value to your answer. See, for example, there are many tools that you can use. We can talk about the tools itself for hours together, right? So mentioning the top tools such as Selenium, Rational Robot, be it UFT, the Unified Functional Testing by HP, or be it the RFT, the Rational Functional Tester by IBM, and in fact there are many other tools as well. So make sure to note that in case if you have used it, please do talk about it as well. Now, coming to the fourth question, it states, what is locator and how will you locate an element in Selenium? Well, since the first part of the questions deals with what an locator actually is, well, it's pretty simple. A locator is actually used to find and match elements of a certain web page that we are trying to find and interact with at that particular point in time. So it's a pretty simple and a straightforward concept when you look at it, but then when you try to understand about how we try to locate an element, or let's say what are the types of locators, right, that answering it that way, so mentioning all of that, right, it's going to add a lot of value to your answer. See, for example, there's lots of locators that we can use wherever we're trying to find interactions in between what's happening in the website. For example, there's ID, there's name, we have class, partial link, XPath, the CSS selector, of course, and then the link text as well. So instead of just saying what a locator is or how you can locate an element, it always adds value to just go one step beyond and show the interviewer that you do know Selenium in depth. But then, hey, make sure to keep the answer concise and do not go overboard with an answer if you're straying away from the topic as well. On that note, question number 5 states, what are the test types that are supported by Selenium? Well, there are two types of testing that you can do with Selenium. That's functional testing and regression testing. Now, when we talk about functional testing, right, here all we're trying to do is we're verifying every single function of a software application to see if it's performing as it's supposed to do. As the name suggests, functional testing, it will give you an easier idea to remember it. So a lot of concepts involved here, but primarily we deal with black box testing, and we're not really looking in depth towards the code of the applications, right? So we have the functions, we pass some inputs to the functions, and we see if you're getting the right output. You will know what the outputs are for the required inputs. So as soon as you pass these inputs, you are supposed to get the outputs correctly. If you're not, there's a very good chance that your function is not working, right? So this is all about functional testing. And then when we talk about regression testing, we're trying to re-execute all of the partial test cases that we might have done, or let's say a partial selection of a test case that we have previously executed to make sure all the functionalities work fine or not. As the name suggests, regression involves either partly taking the test case or fully taking an already run test case and to eventually and reevaluate it to make sure that you're adding that much depth into the testing process as well, right? So at the end of the day, all your requirement is to make sure that you have an accurate test case and to see that the accuracy is maintained throughout. So there are two types, as we discussed. It's functional testing and regression testing, so make sure to mention that. Now, moving on to the sixth question, it says, what is XPath? Well, so think about this, right? So whenever you're trying to locate an element, or let's say even various elements across a site, you have to first find the element and then reference it with another element, or in fact find the reference of another element overall itself. So the concept behind this, right, the functioning of we finding elements and we finding an element with the reference to another element, etc., all of this happens by the use of XPath. DOM has been the standard, right? The document object model has been the standard way to actually navigate what we call as the HTML element tree. And XPath itself is a navigation tool, that does a very similar thing to what DOM does. But at the end of the day, we are considering its XML nature, its elemental form based on its XML path as well. So hence the name XPath. XPath stands for XML path as well, guys. So moving on to the seventh question, it states, what is the difference between a single slash and a double slash in XPath? Well, if your requirement is to create an absolute path, you'll be making use of a single slash, right? So in case if you have a requirement with the XPath which has a requirement for an absolute path, you'll go the single slash route. So what usually happens is you will start selection with the document start node and then work your way up from there. But then in case if you do not have an absolute path, but let's say you have a relative path, right, then you'll be making use of a double slash. So this is a huge difference, and you really should keep this in mind. And whenever you're taking a relative path, you really don't have to start with the document's start node. So here, since the path is actually relative, you can start anywhere you want in the document, and that itself is a huge advantage in multiple cases as well. So when you ask this question, make sure to put the answer out in a concise way, as you see. Now, moving on to the eighth question, it states, why should I use Selenium for test automation? Well, this is another way of saying, can you state the advantages of Selenium for test automation, or let's say, can you talk about the benefits, features of Selenium and how it helps in automation testing, etc. So it's all the same question, right? So approaching this question, you should really consider talking about Selenium as a testing tool in terms of its benefits that it offers and how easy it is to use. See, the first point is that it's a free tool, it's an open source tool, which means that it's an amazing, it has an amazing community, it has a very large user base, and of course, even a small startup firm, right, all the way till a huge enterprise really would not have to put in a good amount of money to get started with it as well. Since it's open source, there's thousands of developers across the globe already developing it, and Selenium supports cross-browser compatibility, be it Firefox, be it Google Chrome, be it Microsoft Edge and everything. And in terms of platform compatibility, we have Windows, we have Linux, we have Mac OS, and a lot of other platforms as well. And when you talk about programming languages and scripting, of course, there is a huge support that Selenium offers, which definitely has a very big impact on today's world as well. And then when we think about repository developments and how Selenium supports distributed testing across multiple nodes or multiple machines in a network, right? This is where it really outshines many of the other open source tools, and in fact, some of the even paid tools as well. So in that regard, Selenium does a lot, and the common goal of Selenium is that you really don't have to put in a lot of work to see a lot of results in terms of testing as well. So that removes a lot of manual labor. It keeps your process very efficient, very effective, in terms of testers time, in terms of the developers time, and a lot more. Now, coming on to the ninth question, it states, does Selenium have any technical limitations? If so, what are those limitations? See, at the end of the day, any tool, any framework, any programming language will have a certain caveat that you really have to talk about, right? So Selenium itself has a few limitations when we talk about it. So Selenium is only used for web application testing, and I'm sure you already know that at this point of time. And if you have a requirement of, let's say, mobile applications or even desktop applications, at this point of time, you cannot test it with Selenium. And if you have CAPTCHA readers, if you have barcode readers, all of these cannot be evaluated by making use of Selenium as well. And let's say you have third-party tools like TestNG or JUnit that you really need to use a report. Most of the time you will have to learn all of these other third-party tools when you have to work with Selenium as well. So understanding that and using it alongside Selenium to generate your reports, right, that will take a little bit of a learning curve as well. So that will take some time and some money, definitely, right? So thinking about Selenium in general, even though there is a free tool, no ready vendor support is provided, because it's very difficult to have that kind of an architecture in an open source tool. But then, of course, hey, when you think about it, the user base, the amount of help you can get from the communities is definitely overwhelming. So that itself, in my opinion, does not count as a limitation. But then if you have a requirement for compulsory vendor support, then of course you really have to talk about that as well. And then if you're working with Selenium, you really have to know programming languages, right? So you have to have some experience working with it. And at the end of the day, it depends on what web apps that you're testing out with Selenium as well. But having that as a requirement is a definite compulsion, in my opinion. So that again adds to the learning curve as well. So these are some of the top points that came across my mind whenever we talk about the limitations of Selenium. So make sure to mention at least 3 or 4 and see if you can elaborate on any of the limitations that you yourself faced while learning Selenium, or in fact while implementing something in Selenium as well. Moving on to the 10th question, it states, what is an object repository? An object repository is this entity which basically helps and allows the users to keep all of the web elements of, let's say, an application under test, or what we call as AUT, and their locator values in one single location, right? So an object repository basically allows users to accumulate all web elements of any sort of web application that we're talking about whenever we perform AUT, and let's say even their locator values as well, right? So you can have all of these in either one or more centralized location to make sure that we really do not hardcode them with the actual test scripts that we're using to perform and evaluate our test operations as well. So to do that, to bring all of these to a location where we can have more efficiency in the system, we make use of object repository. Now, moving on to the 11th question, it states, what are the different types of annotations that are used in Selenium? Well, I'm sure you already know what annotations are, right? So annotations are this syntactic metadata that we add to our Java source code, and all of these elements are actually annotated. Think about variables, think about parameters, packages, methods, classes, and more, right? Now, when you talk about the different types of annotations that are used in Selenium, you have about 7 that you really have to mention when you ask this question. It's test, it's before, it's after, ignore, before class, after class, and run with, right? So remembering these is it's very simple, because you will understand the usage of annotations and you will know how to use them, since there's a good chance you would have used one if not all of these as well. But then it is highly likely that you ask this question, so make sure to mention all of these types of the JUnit annotations that are present and used in Selenium as well. So moving on to the 12th question, it states, why do testers choose Selenium over QTP? Now, this is one way of, again, you trying to put out the advantages of Selenium, but this time in direct comparison with a QTP tool, right? So the first thing you have to mention is that Selenium is an open source tool, because QTP is a tool where you have to pay and pick it up, right? So in that regard, it's an advantage for Selenium and its users. Now, when you think about another characteristic of Selenium, you already know, and we already discussed about how it can only be used to test web applications, right? But then QTP can also be make used to test client server applications as well. So if there's a requirement for that, then clients should definitely look at QTP as well. And Selenium supports a wide variety of browsers, be it Firefox, Internet Explorer. Of course, Internet Explorer is now replaced by Edge and it's retired. We have Opera, we have Safari, and we have a lot of other operating systems alongside browsers that offer good amount of compatibilities as well. And then when we have to talk about the languages that are supported by Selenium, you have Ruby, you have Perl, you have Python, and many other languages that you can work with in the case of Selenium. But then, hey, if you're making use of QTP, it will only support VB script or Visual Basic script. So guys, make sure to mention this point as well. It's very important, that you mention about programming languages, about its open source nature, about its ability to handle web apps and client server application, and of course about its compatibility as well. Now, moving on to the 13th question, it says, what are the 4 elements that you have to pass in Selenium? So I'm sure you would have come across this question when you're preparing for your interview, or I'm sure that you yourself expect that this question would be asked, right? So the 4 parameters that the 4 parameters that have to be passed whenever you're talking about Selenium is the host, it's the port number, it's the browser, and it's definitely the URL, right? So you need these parameters compulsorily in case if you have to pass it through Selenium and then work with it later as well. So make sure to mention that. And hey, if you have your laptop right in front of you, it always adds a lot of value if you can show all of these practically by making use of an example as well. So with all the questions that we are going to discuss, wherever it is possible, please do show it out practically. That definitely adds a lot more weight to your interview application, and in fact your interview process as well. Now, moving on to the 14th question, it states, what is SOP or the same origin policy, and how can we avoid this policy? Well, the same origin policy was put into place to make sure that the content of your site, can never be directly pulled, can never be directly accessed by any other website whenever someone makes use of a script. So, as per the policy, right, any code that gets loaded into a web browser can only be operated with that particular website's domain, right? I'm sure you already knew this. But then to avoid the same origin policy where you will have access to it, the proxy injection method is used. So what we're trying to do with the proxy injection method is that we have the Selenium servers that trick the browser, thinking that it is an actual real HTTP URL, and it'll pretend to be a client server HTTP proxy, which will actually sit as a bridge in between the application that we are talking about, and of course the browser, which has been the acting browser. And what we try to do is we mask the application under test by making use of a fictional URL and then pass it across. So to answer this question in a state view on how we can avoid it, we make use of the proxy injection method. Hence, I've highlighted it in the answer. It's a very important aspect of this question, to make sure to answer it in a clear way. Coming to the 15th question, it states, what is a data-driven framework, right? So a data-driven framework in its aspect and its foundational concept is basically an approach that we take, when we have to go on to split our data set from the actual test code or the test case that we are talking about, right? So this particular framework is actually dependent totally on the input data. Now, when you think about input data, think about a variety of sources from where it can come, right? You can have it through any local database, you can have it through an offsite server, it can be hosted on a cloud platform, it can be a CSV file, Excel file, or anywhere that you get the data from. So having a framework that is totally dependent on this access for the input data, and the support for it is there as well. So through this, what it allows us is that it will give you very easy control to see how much data needs to be tested and what level of depth that you really have to go to whenever you're working with your application and whenever you're trying to automate the process of testing it as well. Now, after understanding this, there's another framework that you really have to know about. It's the keyword driven framework. So what is keyword driven framework? One thing whenever you're asked this question is to make sure you talk about the data driven testing framework a little bit, and then you talk about keyword driven framework, right? Because the keyword driven framework is actually a direct extension of the data driven testing. So it's built on top of that. And here, instead of so here what we're trying to do is we're isolating the test data completely from the script, but we're also trying to keep that particular section of the code in an external data file to make sure that we really do not come across with any crosstalk or any sort of inefficiencies in testing as well. So the set of codes that we test, right, it's called as the keywords, and hence the name is actually driven from that. If you can look at the name, so keyword driven framework means the set of code that we have, we are actually calling it as a keyword, and these keywords denote the actual way, the actual work, what needs to be done and what action needs to be performed whenever we are testing the application as well. So through the keyword, we are driving the test framework, right? Hence, that's one of the good ways on how you can remember the answer to this question as well. And then moving on to the 17th question, it states, how will you upload So moving on to the 17th question, it says, how will you use Selenium to upload a file? Now, if you have a file which is in the same machine, if it's in a local network, or let's say even if it's in the map network drive, a NAS or whatever it is, right? It's extremely straightforward. All you really have to do is type in the actual path of it and upload it in the file upload control, and you are done. It is that straightforward. Now, when you think about an example, right, as I've always told you, if you have a laptop right in front of you, please do open it up, run Selenium, and make sure that you show how it's done as well. I have a very simple code snippet right in front of you where we're making use of the file upload control, and we've just provided a path. Here in our case, the file is actually in C drive. It's called as myfile.txt, and of course this will be very different in your case, but then do show it practically as we have discussed before. Now, so moving on to the 18th question, it states, what is the difference between get window handles and get window handle? The only S at the end is the difference, but then there is a lot more to it, as you will see. Now, we use get window handles, especially when we have to get all the addresses of whatever browsers we have opened up, and it returns all of these data, in set string. Now, when we talk about get window handle, right, here we're trying to get the address of only the current browser where we have the control in. And of course the return type is the generic string data type out here. But then depending on what your requirement is, do you want the output from all of the browsers, or do you want the output from the only main browser, the current browser where you have the control in for your application under testing, right? So you really have to think about that, and depending on what the requirement is, you'll either make use of get window handles or get window handle as well. Coming on to the 19th question, it says, what is Celanese, and what are the three types of Celanese that are available? Celanese, as the name suggests, in fact, is the set of commands that we make use of Selenium whenever we're running any sort of test to test our applications out here, guys. So, talking about the types of Celanese, there are three types of Celanese. One are the actions, we have the actions, we have the accessors, and we have the assertions as well. Actions, as the name suggests, are used to perform operations, used to perform interactions with whatever target elements that we have that we need tested. And then we have the accessors, right? Accessors are used to store values into a variable, and I think you'll get the fair idea of why it's called as an accessor, right? And then we have assertions. Assertions are used as checkpoints everywhere in between whenever we go on to test applications to see if everything is all right as well. So these are the commands that will help you to put down checkpoints, to analyze and take it slow from one point to another whenever you're performing, say, a complex test case as well. So whenever you're asked about Celanese, make sure to talk about its command usage, make sure to talk about the three types: actions, assertions, and accessors, and it always adds value if you can explain about it in a clear and a concise way, rather than dragging it out, right? So it's a pretty straightforward concept. Now, coming on to the next question, it states, if I want to insert a breakpoint in the Selenium IDE, the integrated development environment, how can I do it? Well, It's extremely straightforward to insert a breakpoint, even though it seems very tricky, right? So all you have to do is you have to select the toggle breakpoint by right clicking on the command in the Selenium IDE, and then there's a shortcut to it. The shortcut is the B key. So make sure to press B button on the keyboard and select the actual command, right? So if you want to add a breakpoint, you can do the same thing. But then if you have to if you really have to deselect the breakpoint, right, it's still the same thing. All you have to do is go toggle the breakpoint by right clicking on it and hitting B as well. So even though the question states on how you can insert it, go that extra mile to talk about how you can deselect it as well, right? All you have to do is click on it again to deselect it, guys. Now, coming on to the 21st question, it says, how do I launch the web browser by making use of WebDriver? Well, to make use of the WebDriver, it directly depends on what browser that you're running, right? There is three simple syntaxes that I've put in on your screen. We have WebDriver driver. So we have the WebDriver for the Firefox driver, we have the Internet Explorer driver, or the most used one, which is supposed to be the Chrome driver as well. So, this is a very simple, straightforward syntax that you can use to, launch the browser in any of the operating systems as well. So depending on that particular browser that you have a requirement for to put your applications under testing, make sure to mention these. But then, of course, guys, make sure to talk about the practical aspect and show it if possible as well. Now, coming on to the 22nd question, it says, what are the different types of weights that are available in WebDriver? Now, whenever we talk about weights, right, there's two very different types of weight you definitely have to talk about in the case of WebDriver. It's implicit weight and explicit weight. Implicit wait is in a sense where there is a set amount of time, let's say a waiting time that you define in between all the test scripts that have to execute, right? So in case if you have one entire test script, but then you really have to time it out in between each of the test steps and by giving it some time, right? This is where implicit test will come into the picture. You can put a timing of, let's say, somewhere around 30 seconds before each of the test steps move across and runs the entire script. So to run each of these steps in an order, you can have 30 seconds and wait and then test it and then move on to the next one as well. That's implicit wait. Now, coming on to explicit wait. So explicit waits are made use of whenever you have a condition, whenever you have an explicit or a particular condition where you have to halt the execution until that condition is met. Or let's say if the condition is not met, we really don't have to wait there, right? We can add a condition saying if the condition is not met, then of course here is the maximum time allotted. You can wait until that point of time and of course then execute as well. So but then you really have to talk about two things when you talk about explicit wait. One is that the execution will halt if the condition is met, and the execution will halt if the condition is not met, but we have the maximum time that has been elapsed as well. So this is the basic difference that lies in between implicit and explicit wait whenever we talk about WebDriver. Coming to the 23rd question, it states, how do I handle an iframe in WebDriver as well? So I'm sure you know what an iframe is, right? So an iframe actually stands for an inline frame, which is used to insert any other document into our current HTML working document as well. To select an iframe by the ID, you have the driver.switch2.frame that you'll be using with the name of the ID. And then if you have to use the tag name, of course, we're going to use the by.tagname feature. And then, whenever we have to talk about using the indexes or the indices, as we use frame of index, and we're going to switch to that as well. And then when you're talking about using the name of the frame, of course we can use that. And then whenever you're talking about selecting the parent window as well, of course we're going to make use of the default content for that. So take a second, pause it on this question, do take a note of all of these in case if you're not very familiar with how a frame gets handled in WebDriver in a variety of way, by making use of its ID, by making use of its tag name, indices, name of the frame, and of course the parent window as well. Now, with that, we can move on to the 24th question that says, how do I set the test case priority in TestNG, right? So first of all, whenever you're working with TestNG, you really have to understand the basic functionality of the code, right? So we have to import the package first of all, and we'll have a class. In class, we're going to set the priority, right? So line number 4 states at test priority is equal to 0, at test priority equal to 1, priority equal to 2. These lines are the inline cases that we're trying to say. these are the lines where we're trying to say inline on how and what method should get what priority, right? So method 1 will execute first because it has a priority 0, and then we have the test method 2 that will run because the priority of it is 1, and then the method 3 will run because priority is 2. But understand that priorities start from 0, it being the highest priority, and of course as the number goes up, the priority level goes down. So the execution that you see for that particular code on your screen is the execution of method 1 first, then we have method 2, and of course then we have method 3. Now, coming on to the 25th question, it states, what are the different types of test automation frameworks that are available? This again is a very simple question. It's a very straightforward question, and you really don't have to explain a lot when you're asked about this. Since you're asked the different types of it, make sure to mention the types of it. And of course, if you've made use of all of these types of test automation frameworks, do talk about your experience there, because that adds a lot of value. Now, coming to the answer, you have module-based testing frameworks, you have behavior-driven, you have hybrid testing frameworks, you have the keyword-driven testing frameworks, you have the data-driven, you have library architecture testing frameworks, and you have a lot of others as well, right? But then it always adds value if you at least mention 4 or let's say 5. I've mentioned the 6 testing frameworks, on the screen, but then make sure you at least have 4 or 5 down, so that you have something to talk about it, and a one-line description of each of them in case if you have used it, or in case if you have come across about it, or if you know it will add a lot of value to your candidature as well. So make sure to talk about that. Now, moving on to the 26th question, it states, describe the differences between Selenium and QTP, right? So we already handled this particular question once, but then it is very vital that you really know the difference, because this question is asked, let's say, in 99% of the interviews, guys. So Selenium is an open source tool. Quick Test Professional, or QTP as we call it, as a licensed tool. You have to pay for it. With Selenium, we can only test web applications, while QTP supports both web and Windows based and mobile based applications. Selenium supports Java, C#, Ruby, Python, Perl, and many other languages as well. But then QTP only supports VB-script, and in case we're talking about the object repository, right? So we have to maintain it and create it separately, and we have to do it entirely ourselves in case of Selenium. But then with the help of QTP does this automatically. It creates it and maintains it for us as well. Since we have already run through this question once, I'm just giving you a quick reminder to make sure that you actually take a note of this without fail, guys. Now, coming on to the 27th question, it states, in Selenium, what are breakpoints and what are start points? As the name itself suggests, breakpoints are used to stall or break that particular execution at that point of time. So whenever there is a breakpoint that has occurred, or whenever there is the execution that comes to a breakpoint, it means that the program will stop there, and you can test and see if your code is working properly or not, and then move to the next set of steps in your code as well. And then when we talk about start points again are the points where we have to start the execution as well. So why would we require start points if we can just add breakpoints and move on, right? But then start points are required whenever we have to test any sort of scripts from the middle, or let's say even after a breakpoint, instead of testing it again from the start manually all the time, right? So if you have a requirement of testing it from the middle, or let's say even after a breakpoint, the usage of a start point will definitely add a lot of value there as well. So this is the basic difference that lies in between breakpoints and start points. So make sure to mention that. Now, coming on to the 28th question, it states, mention the need for session handling while working with Selenium. Well, one very important thing is that whenever we work with Selenium, no matter what we're trying to do, we require session handling, right? So what usually happens in the working of Selenium is that we have the WebDriver, and this WebDriver has to interact with the browser at every single point in time to execute all of the commands that are that we give, right? So here is a scenario where we require session handling. Let's say before the current execution completes, someone else might start an execution of another script on the same machine, on the same type of browser, right? Now this will cause a lot of redundancy. To make sure that we do not arrive at this particular deadlock where we're trying to perform a similar execution of a different script, but then it's the same machine, it's the same browser, we really have to make use of session handling, because this will give complete control to the WebDriver of whatever is happening to the browser, and it serves as a bridge for us to use it as well. Now, coming on to the 29th question, it states mention the types of listeners that are present in TestNG. Well, there are 12 types of listeners in TestNG, and if it's completely understandable if you cannot, name all 12, but then I highly recommend you name at least 6 of them, right? So you have the annotation. You have the I annotation transformer, I configurable, I configuration listener, I execution listener, I hookable, invoke method listener, you have invoke method listener 2, method interceptor, the I reporter, the I suit listener, and of course we have the I test listener as well. If you can name all 12, it's an amazing thing, and if you can name all 6, trust me, that will definitely do the job as well. But then try to push to name all 12 listeners that are present in TestNG. Moving on to the 30th question, it states, how can we handle Windows-based pop-ups with Selenium? This is a very tricky question, and this is asked a lot. You already know this, right? Selenium cannot handle Windows-based application. It's only used to test web applications. So make sure to mention that as it is. Say no, it cannot support the testing of Windows-based applications or mobile-based applications. But then if you really have to test Windows-based pop-ups, then you will require third-party intervention as well. Third-party tools such as the robot class, or you have the auto IT, which can be used in cases where we have to make use of Windows-based pop-ups alongside Selenium to test this in case of a web application as well. So for that, you cannot directly do it with Selenium, and of course with third-party tools you can do it, but then mention the name of third-party tools that you'll be using alongside Selenium to achieve the handling of web-based pop-ups as well. Moving on to the 31st question, it states, for the database testing in Selenium WebDriver, what API is required, right? This is a very simple question, a straightforward question, but then I've seen a lot of people answer this wrong. So make sure to answer it correctly. It's very simple. You require the JDBC API. In the Selenium WebDriver, basically we make use of the Java database connectivity, or in short, it's called as the JDBC API, and it is used to run all of our SQL commands for us, SQL statements for us in a very simple and a straightforward way. Guys, the answer to this is JDBC. If you can talk 1 or 2 sentences about the JDBC API, it will help. But then make sure to talk about how it is used as well. Moving on to the next question, it states, how can you identify an object in Selenium? So to identify an object in Selenium, let's say to find an object in Selenium, right, we make use of the isElementPresent. It's a string locator that is provided by Selenium, and what it does is it takes the locator as the argument, and if the locator is particularly found, it returns a Boolean value saying, it found the value. So you can use the Boolean return value as an assertion to see if your locator that you've put in as the argument to isElementPresent is found in your, it's found in your test case or not. So the isElementPresent is used to find any sort of object in Selenium. Make sure to mention that. Moving on to the 33rd question, it states, mention the use of XPath in Selenium testing. We already talked about XPath at the start of this particular video, right? It's a way of how we define web elements. It's pretty similar to the document object model, but then in the case of XPath, what we're trying to do is we're trying to identify all of our elements in a very dynamic way. But then, since we're talking about XPath, you really have to mention about the 2 types of XPath that are present. We have the absolute XPath, and of course, we have the relative XPath as well. And we've already discussed absolute and relative XPath in the previous questions. So in case if you've jumped ahead, make sure to revisit those questions and check it out as well. Coming to the 34th question, it states, what are the important components of Selenium? Well, as a person interviewing for a Selenium tester's role, you have to know all the components, guys. You have 4 main components. You have the Selenium Grid, you have Selenium RC, which is the remote control, you have Selenium WebDriver, and of course the entire IDE, which is the Selenium Integrated Development Environment as well. These 4 form to be the basic architecture, the basic foundation upon which you can do everything in Selenium, right? I mean, of course, there are other third-party components as well, but then what is indigenous and what is native to Selenium is what the question is about. So make sure to answer it that way. Now, moving on to the 35th question, it states, can WebDriver test mobile applications? Another test question, another tricky question regarding mobile apps, right? You cannot test mobile applications in Selenium. You cannot test Windows-based applications directly with Selenium, right? So the answer is very straightforward. It's a no, because Selenium is not built to because Selenium is not built to do this, right? So WebDriver was built as a tool where you can test web applications only. It was not built for mobile application testing, or in fact it was not built for Windows based application testing as well. So make sure to mention it as is. This is a very simple and straightforward question which definitely has a simple yes or no answer to it as well. Moving on to the 36th question, it states, how does Selenium Grid work? Well, a Selenium Grid is basically used to create a suite where we're trying to, work with all of the forwarding test cases that we have to the hub, or let's say even back from the hub as well. And the test cases from here are directly redirected to, and then the test cases from here, right, we're trying to redirect it through the WebDriver and get them to execute in the browser as well. So what the test suite basically does is that it will make sure we can run all of our codes and tests in parallel. That is the most important use case of Selenium Grid, guys. So make sure to mention that as well. So all we're trying to do is we're trying to push the test cases through our WebDriver. Our WebDriver will execute them in the browser, and we can have multiple test cases execute and run them in parallel as well. Now with this, we can check out the 37th question that says, do you have any experience working, in the same industry as ours before? One thing is certain. This question is a very, very frequently asked question in case if you are, having any sort of experience. Well, it can be asked to you in case if you're a fresher as well, because we're living in a world where people are upskilling themselves on their own through certification programs, right? More on that in the next couple of questions. But then when you talk about it, if you have any experiences, please talk about how you've tried to solve a problem, right? So Selenium is all about finding problems and, either you solving them or finding a team that will solve them for you. So talk about the how approach rather than the what approach in terms of experience, especially in Selenium, right? Elaborate on what techniques you have used, what tools you have used, what third-party attachments that you have made use of in your Selenium learning career, how you learned Selenium as well. But then at the end of the day, right, make sure to not bloat a lot about your experience in case if you have not made use of any tool, because that might lead to further questions asked on that particular tool or technique, and this definitely will work against you in case if you cannot answer that as well, right? So keep it very clear and keep it concise in terms of answering this question as well. And then another question can be asked saying, why are you applying for the Selenium role in our company, right? So this question has a very simple and a straightforward way through which you have to answer it. The interviewer expects you to convince them on why you need the job. So talk about how proficient you are in your subject, how well you can handle all the concepts when it comes to automation of testing with especially large amounts of data, variety of data, and how you might have the capabilities of building a rock solid testing pipeline as well. You just have to convince the interviewer by stating a couple of reasons of how you stand apart from the general crowd in terms of applying for their company. They might be a startup company, they might be a mid-sized company, or let's say they can be a huge $1 trillion company that you're applying for. But then before you step into the interview, make sure to understand the job description in all of its detail. If the human resource actually gave you a call, if the hiring manager actually gave you a call prior to the interview, make sure to ask about job description in detail as well. It always helps if you understand the detail of the company, their motto, what their vision and mission is, and what problem they are trying to solve, and see how you can fit well in their architecture as well, right? So it'll always work in your favor if you can put in an equal amount of work to understand about the company that you're applying for, guys. So make sure to please put in some effort there alongside your actual interview preparation as well. Coming to the 39th question, it states, what is your plan after joining the Selenium testing role? Here, one important thing, even before I tell you how to answer this, is keep it very concise, keep it very clear, because I'm sure you can talk 20 minutes about this particular answer. But then, the interviewer might have heard hundreds of answers to this exact question, right? All you're trying to do is you're trying to bring yourself to the table. You're trying to see how well you can present yourself in terms of how simply you can explain what you're trying to do, what your career goals are, and how you plan to fit right into their role, right? Always talk about how you are a team player, and what your interpersonal skills are, and what your skills are to your basic love with data. So you really have to talk about all of that and then talk about how you plan to better fit yourself into the company first, understand what pipeline and architecture they have, and probably how you can improvise it in the coming days of your employment there as well. So if you answer it this way, right, it definitely has a very rock solid impression that you will create in the mind of the interviewer as well. Now, coming to the last question on these top interview questions set, it states, have you earned any sort of certification to improve your learning and implementation process, in Selenium? Well, one thing you really do have to notice whenever we talk about certification programs, right? Not only do they add a lot of knowledge to you, not only do they add a lot of value to your life, give you exposure to test cases, give you exposure to learning from experts across the world, give you access to communities and whatnot, right? As a person who's learning it, you are going to win thoroughly with a certification program. But then, what the interviewer is concerned with this particular answer that you have to talk about is how well you show in terms of career advancements, right? Let's say you do have certification programs that you have completed in Selenium. What it tries to tell the interviewer is that you have put in a considerable amount of time and effort into learning something either that you have wanted to learn in the past, or either something that you really have as a career goal, or it can be a brand new thing. You can be a Python developer who wants to learn Selenium now. You can be a web developer who wants to work on Selenium now. So in all of those cases, you're trying to showcase yourself as a strong aspirer to learn new things on your own and to upskill yourself as well. So it'll generally portray a picture of you being an effective learner, and that you have the capability to pick up concepts, pick up new things, work on real life projects through these top certification programs, and in fact implement them as well. See, with any IT concept in the world that you can think about is put into place to solve a problem. So in case you're asked this question, right, do talk about it in that approach. Do not talk about what the problem is, talk about how you solved the problem, right? So the same applies for certification as well. Of course, please do state what all certifications you have, how much amount of time, effort and money you have put into learning them in a clear and concise way. But at the end of it, what adds value is when you tell the interviewer how and what you took away from the program, right? So you would have given real life use cases, industry level projects that you will have to solve in your certification program. Please do talk about that, because that at the end of the day will add value to you as a learner and to the person who's on the other side of your table right now taking your interview as well. So that definitely means a lot to both of you guys. It's a win-win situation, right? So I would like to take this opportunity to wish you guys all the very best for your Selenium interviews. I am sure with these questions you have a clear picture of how you're supposed to attack these questions and how you can answer them in a very clear and a concise way, without it and adding unnecessary points as well. But then make sure to follow all the guidelines in the video, and I'm sure you guys are going to ace all of your interviews. So with that, I wish you all the very best, and I'm more than excited to see you on the next one.